Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Podcast Accelerator, the thrice-weekly show that brings you podcast education, industry insights, and straight-talking reactions to podcasting news. I'm your host, Mark Asquith, that British podcast guy, and CEO and co-founder here at Rebel Base Media, the podcast tech company that creates the Podcast Success Academy, podcast websites, Productivity, Rebel Base Studios, and Captivate.fm, the world's only growth-oriented podcast host, where you can get your first month of podcast hosting for just $1, and where, of course, you can transfer an existing podcast in completely for free. So go ahead and check it out now at Captivate.fm. On today's show, I'm going to talk a little bit about maximizing your podcast's visibility with some very simple tweaks. Very simple tweaks, things that people tend not to do because they kind of take them for granted. So we're going to dig into that in just one moment. But hey, before I do that, just a quick reminder that AWeber, the amazing team over at AWeber, Brandon, Chris, the rest of the team, are still offering you that 90-day free trial of their email marketing platform. And I've said this 1,000 times before, but I truly believe that email marketing is still the greatest way to connect with your audience. It's why every online business runs a high-quality email list. I mean, you're on 1,000 yourself. I have got no doubt. So ask yourself, are you doing enough via email to connect with your listeners? And if you're not, I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be that you're not, because are any of us? If you are not, please go ahead and try AWeber for 90 days. You will not regret it. They're the greatest team in email marketing. Please go and check it out at markasquith.com/AWeber. Okay, so podcasting is becoming busier and busier every single day. More money is being spent on marketing the big shows than ever before, and thanks to that, making sure that your podcast is as visible as possible has never been more important. Now, discoverability is a huge issue with podcasts. We know, according to Edison's research, that frankly, we're not browsing the directories that much. What we're doing is we're searching for things, we're talking about recommendations, we're asking friends to get in touch and tell us what they're listening to, or we're just proactively recommending podcasts to friends if we are of that ilk. And we know that, quite simply, most of the things that we do for discoverability purposes and for visibility purposes, they're just not working that well. There's just not that much going on with it, all right? So what you've got to do in this day and age is, number one, understand that discoverability and visibility is a huge part of the podcasting puzzle, but it's not something that is going to be easily fixed anytime soon. It's not something you can really manipulate that much when it comes to algorithms. Maybe that will change with Google and Apple Podcasts starting to use transcripts in podcast search. Perhaps that will become easier to be found. I don't know, but even if it is, it's going to be long-tail search. And it's much like, if you think about podcast visibility and discoverability, it's almost like TV shows or films. It's basically advertising and word of mouth that gets bums on seats, that gets you into the movie theater, gets you into the cinema, that gets you watching Chernobyl on TV. You know, it's basic marketing and it's basic mass awareness, all right? Now, if you don't have the budget to do that, it's going to be difficult. So you've got to focus on your niche. You've got to focus on your people, bringing together one person at a time. And the simple visibility tweaks that I believe you can make are as follows. Number one, give yourself a really good trailer. Now, we talk about this a lot. We've even got a really nice free course over in podcastsuccessacademy.com. Go and check that out. It's a free course on how to build a killer podcast trailer. And the point of this is that it doesn't matter what you do, all right? This can be the ultimate in content. It can be the best 45-minute, 20-minute, half-hour content, 1-hour content that there is. It can be the best. But when have you ever watched a film without seeing a trailer or even reading a synopsis? What about when you're seeing TV shows advertised on TV? They always give you some footage. What about gameplay? You always see footage. Why do we in podcasting believe that we can just say, go and listen to my episode 1 or my episode 0? Why would I do that? Why would I want to spend 45 minutes on something that I might not like? And what about if all the good stuff that I do like is at minute 26? If I only get to minute 25 because the rest of it doesn't interest me? Give me a high quality trailer. I do it for my shows. Podcast Accelerator, Spark of Rebellion. I do it for the 7-Minute Mentor. Go and look at Inside Star Wars that we featured on Spark of Rebellion this week. It's a show by Hernan and Mark Ramsey at Wondery. They've done a wonderful job of Inside Star Wars. It's absolutely superb. It's fantastic, all right? But they also put out a nice little 1-minute trailer, and it's absolutely perfect. It's exactly what you want, all right? So that's the first thing. Maximizing your podcast visibility with simple tweaks. Tip number 1 is do a really good podcast trailer. Now, if you want in and you want that killer trailer course, go and check it out, podcastsuccessacademy.com. It's free. Go and check it out, podcastsuccessacademy.com. The second thing that you can do is basically get your website together. Get your website together, all right? Even if it's just a simple page. So using something like Captivate.fm, this is going to sound like just an ad for my stuff today. It's really not. This is all stuff that we've built because we know it's important. Captivate.fm, our podcast hosting and analytics platform, has got a built-in, dead simple, super easy to use, amazing looking website. All right, it has. And it makes it easy to subscribe. It makes it easy for you to go to the show and understand what to do next. Podcast websites allows for higher quality, bigger, more managed WordPress solutions to exist for podcasters that are a little bit more serious. So either way, there's an easy option. Even if you just spin up a quick web page, you can do that. Now, you have to get this right. The reason you've got to get this right is for search. You know, if someone's searching for your podcast, a Star Wars podcast, if they're searching for another thing to do with your niche, you need to come up, all right? You need to come up. If you don't rank for your brand term, so if you don't rank for your company name, your podcast name, then you have to start challenging that a little bit. And to do that, you have to have a website. It's clear, all right? It's clear. So please go ahead and do that. The next thing that I want you to look at is your subtitle in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Your subtitle is the second piece of descriptive text after your title that will be seen by many podcast players and many podcast listeners. It's the thing that a lot of the time you see before the big old description, all right? And the subtitle has just got to be a high-quality tagline, all right? We talk about, again, in the Academy, we talk about how to do that, podcastsuccessacademy.com, how to create one of these. But ultimately, the title has to be something that is just very, very obvious. The Podcast Accelerator smacks of the fact that if you listen to the show, it will accelerate your podcast. That simple. But the tagline, thrice-weekly show that brings you podcast education, industry insights, and straight-talking reactions to podcasting news. That is exactly what you're going to get, all right? So the subtitle, it has to be very, very clear what is going on, all right? Because if I'm going to get that click-through from someone to listen to the trailer, it needs to be really clear what they can expect. You know, if you think about a buying process, that's all this is. This is a podcast buying process, even though we're not transacting with anything fiscal in nature, all right? So please do these things. Go back, hit the 15-second back button, hit the 30-second back button, go and listen to this again, and please just start to get these things in order. Now, I know I didn't do a deep dive on any of those. We're going to look at that in a few upcoming sessions. Podcastsuccessacademy.com has got all sorts of information on this sort of stuff. But these are just some dead simple tweaks that I want you to start looking at today, all right? Go back and listen to what I've just said. It's only 8 minutes long. Go and listen to it again, and let's do something today to make your podcast more visible. And of course, as ever, thank you so much for joining me here on the Podcast Accelerator. Now, please remember to tell your podcasting friends that the show is available to listen to for free in any app that supports podcasts. And if you're wondering what the best next step to take for your own podcast is, whether you're a new or veteran podcaster, please go ahead and take our short 5-minute survey where I'm going to help you to diagnose and solve the biggest issue holding your show back from growing it. And not only am I going to give you the answer to that, but I'm going to give you access to our free vibrant Podcast Rebellion community. I'm going to give you weekly free group coaching calls from me and the team, expert podcast emails that are just going to give you actionable insights that you can implement every single week, and even a free invitation to that podcastsuccessacademy.com that I mentioned earlier. So please go and invest 5 minutes now to grow your podcast by heading to rebelbasemedia.io/grow. And until the next episode, have a wonderful day, and never forget, the more you expect from yourself, the more you will excel.